Hello and welcome to this Michelson's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Just to see if the attendees are arriving. Yeah, we're expecting quite a big crowd today, which is really nice. And so from the Michelson side, you've got myself, John Giles, and you've got Karabo Mokoena. I think most of you or many of you will know both of us. And excited to assist you with this webinar today. Both of us are working and doing a lot of work in the context of AI governance. And we obviously AI policy is part of that, and keen to help people to get their heads around the AI policy and also to provide a platform to facilitate discussion. I think one of the things is that we don't know all the answers relating to AI policy. It's a complex topic. We know a lot about AI regulation and governance, um, and but it's obviously a very new topic. It's a very difficult topic. I think one of the key things we as South Africa need to be looking at is how do we participate and run in the AI race globally with other countries, and that's a difficult concept with lots to ponder. But today is not about us presenting. We're not going to present to you the policy. We really want to gather views and opinions of other people about this policy. And so I'd like you to imagine, and I'm picturing here that there's this huge round table, maybe it's an oval table, and we're at about 100 people now, and there are 100 people sitting at this table. And we've got an hour now to brainstorm, to comment, to think, to really get an idea of what we all think about the draft AI policy that's been presented. And so our job today is more crowd control than it is presenting as experts. Um, and we're going to try in this hour to really through questions, get an overview of the policy, talk about some of the key things, really give some structure to the conversation. We're also going to talk a bit about responding to the AI policy, what it means for your organization. We're going to look also a bit then at what it means to give effective comment back to the department on the document, how to go about that, what it looks like, and some take-home points and action items, and then also to answer some of your questions as well at the same time. But maybe, Karabo, if I can hand over to you to give a bit more of an explanation of how this roundtable is going to work.
Yes, John, thank you so much. And good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us. So, like John said, just picture a very big oval table where we're all sitting, and we'll do this, or our oval table will be our Mentimeter. Okay, so we'll have a Mentimeter that will be running, and we'll be asking some questions, asking for some comments just to honestly gather your opinion. We encourage everyone to join the Mentimeter because this is our brainstorming session. Okay, so this is how we can all help each other understand the policy better, see what direction it could take or it is taking. And, if you do have a point that you want to elaborate further on, on Mentimeter, you can't really elaborate a lot on some points. Please do feel free to drop a comment or a question in the Q&A box here on Zoom. And other attendees will have the opportunity to upvote your question. And in the end, if we have time, we'll allow those people to either further elaborate on their points or comments for about 30 seconds live online. So, John, that's how our roundtable will be working today.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. I think, and thank you for all the comments that you made in registering for today. We did go through those. There were lots of questions and comments. We have been through that and tried to build it in to today's content as well. All right, so without further ado, I think we must get into the Menti and start looking at that. So if you, hopefully many of you have have used Menti before in the past and know how this works. Yeah, so there's the first slide. So you've got two options here to participate. Firstly, you can scan that QR code that's on the right, or you can go to menti.com and put in that code. And effectively, it's going to enable you to answer questions, and all the results will be displayed collectively. I can see about 20 people have joined. You can give a thumbs up if you've managed to access it. But yeah, I really encourage you to join, because if you're not connected and not answering, you're not going to be participating and giving your comments and feedback on the policy. Great. We had about 40 odd. And then I see Tyrone, you raised your hand. Maybe I'm not sure if that was on purpose, but we can maybe save that for a bit later to come back to you.
Yeah, and I mean, it is very important that, everyone is on the Mentimeter because, this is how we're able to see, where everyone's mind is, and be able to kind of have a consensus at the end of this webinar as to, okay, what actually, should be the next steps. What does the policy actually say and how people understand it? So this is a brainstorming session. I mean, even if you might not have the answers, just your way of thinking and your perspective will be so valuable to others, in this process as well. So I do encourage everyone to join.
Great. So, Krob, I think we should start with the first question. You can still
Yeah.
join. So we'll go to the first question, and you'll see the code is still at the top. So you're still welcome to join when you get there. Yeah, so that's the first question. What's the first word that comes to mind?
Hmm.
So this is a word cloud. So if people have the same word multiple times, the bigger it'll be. So AI is big. I guess that's cheating. Obviously, it's about AI. Um, no, but there are no wrong answers here.
No.
Really, whatever, um, whatever you think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
so
it's
that's
it's interesting here that there's a lot of regulatory and guidance, I mean governance wording here. So it does seem that a majority of the people are looking at this policy from like that perspective, which makes sense. I think people in the innovation space might think maybe differently. They might want to have something more I don't know, innovation friendly or in that context. But this is interesting.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. I also see the word complex comes up as quite big as well.
Yeah. I mean, and making AI policy is a very difficult job. We've seen jurisdictions all over the world try to, create AI policies or AI acts. We've seen successes and we've also seen some failures as to how to go about approaching AI. And so complex is the right word. It is a complex process and it is a complex piece of document as well.
And also the word ambitious there is coming up, and I do agree with that. I think the policy is very ambitious. Um,
Mm,
all right, that's fantastic. I think we should move on to the next question. And
yes.
you can't lie here. Have to be honest. And yeah, there are no consequences for your answers, so you're welcome to say.
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal, obviously, having a round table and talking about this is if people have read it, and that's, I guess, why we're asking.
Mm. I mean, yes, I've read it. It did take some time, so I understand that, not everyone has the time to go through the whole policy. And yeah, I think it's better to have read it and understood it so you can make comments. So we would actually encourage people, even after this webinar and towards the end of the session or the period for comments to at least go through the documents so at least what is in the documents and how to respond to it. I did say even earlier, this policy affects everyone, so you should have something to say about it. It's very
Mm.
important that you do.
Yeah, I was in the group of two. I found it very hard reading. I thought there's good content, but it was very difficult to access it, is my feeling.
Mm.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next one. So, yeah, what did you think of the document and the wording? I guess not many of you have read it, so this might be difficult to answer, but let's see if we've got some answers.
Mm,
And this is multiple choice. I think you can choose multiple ones.
yeah. I think, John, we are in a very specific part of like the legal profession where we are all about plain, understandable language. We don't really use legal jargon. We don't believe in using legal jargon. We believe that anything that you put in front of someone, they need to be able to understand and act on it. And so that's something that we always promote. And maybe that's something that wasn't always ex like clear in the document, that wasn't present there. What do you think?
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interesting that 22 people have voted on the last one, because I definitely found that I've read, oh, their outcomes, great, let's look at those. And then suddenly there were objectives, then pillars and aims and blocks, and there were all these different things. And I struggle to actually get to the policy statements. In other words, what is South Africa's policy? That was what I was looking for, but there seemed to be many other things, and it wasn't clear how they were all connected. And I think the main thing that the policy should show is South Africa needs to say, we want to achieve these outcomes. What do we need to do to achieve that? And is
Mm,
it connected? Is it realistic? That was really important. And I think it was lacking. It didn't have that connection.
mm.
All right, let's go to the next one. I think sorry, no, actually, we're not going to do that one just yet. So hold your horses there. Um, we are we're going to yeah, what we're going to do now is really to give a bit of an overview. And Karaba, I know you managed to catch up with someone
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yes, John. I had the pleasure of meeting with Dumisani Sondlo, and he is the AI policy and governance lead here. And he's also an author. He was part of the G20 Task Force on AI. So he really was super involved in drafting this AI policy. I was super excited to just to pick his brain. I was very interested about like what approach they use and at least what are the expectations from this comment session. So I think we have a little video that we have, John, to play for everyone.
Yes, exactly. And it's about 8 minutes, so it's quite a long time. But we thought it's really important for you to get an idea of who's behind this policy, who's drafted it, some of the background. And so, yeah, I hope you find this useful.
Mm. Thank you so much for joining us today. The draft national AI policy is out and we're all very excited, to take the next steps. And so today here, I really just want to get into some questions with you. And I think the first one that we're all interested in is what was your approach in developing the draft a South African national AI policy?
Hi, Carol, and hi, everybody. The draft national AI policy has always been about innovations. It's about making sure that we have a country where we can have the freedom to innovate. If you read the speech by Nelson Mandela when he was inaugurated, one of the things that a lot of people perhaps skip through, or a lot of people who've never even read that speech, you'll see there that it says that let everyone know that today everybody is free. So that's the main thing. That's the main thing. So it's about giving freedom. Freedom for South Africans and Africans to innovate, freedom for our people to approach this technology called AI in their own way, in a way that suits us in a way that we understand it better. So let's go into the approach. The approach,
Sorry, I'm not sure why that stopped. Just give me a sec here.
body is free. So that's the main thing. That's the main thing. So it's about giving freedom. freedom for South Africans and Africans to innovate, freedom for our people to approach this technology called AI in their own way, in a way that suits us, in a way that we understand it better. So let's go into the approach. The approach, Karabo, was that we started with an international benchmarking. So with the international benchmarking, we looked at the BRICS countries. We couldn't find anything on Russia and Iran. We looked at the continental strategy of the AU. We looked at the EU Act. So we put all of these documents in front of us, looked at what are the common themes here. We further looked into countries like the Netherlands, Rwanda, Thailand, Chile, and others. And from there, we were able to then put together what was called the National AI Framework. This is what everybody's been looking at all the way since 2024. So we use that document kind of as bait, Karabo, because we understood that we don't know much about AI and its policies. And so we said, hey, we need South Africans to tell us what should go into an AI policy. So we got a lot of inputs between July and November 2024. But most of all, Karabo, we also got some positive media. And that's what government officials are always afraid of. Hey, are we ever going to get any positive media out here? So we got a lot of positive media. And so from there, we did an analysis of the inputs that came in. And with those inputs, we have drafted what is now called the Draft National AI Policy. Now, can I say something about this document while we were drafting this policy? We had to make sure that we keep fidelity with what the stakeholders had written and sent to us. We operate in a political environment as policymakers. So it is very important that we understand that there are the interests of the politicians, but this time we have a golden opportunity to run with the interests of the stakeholders who will write to us, not to have, documents which come from where we don't know. So we made sure that we keep fidelity with this document, protect this document, make sure that we know if this document has been sent to anyone and now we see this document somewhere else being discussed internally. We would make sure that we compare if this document that we're seeing has any difference from the document that we had sent. And we have insisted that we always discuss from the document that has the inputs that come from the stakeholders. So there it is, Karabo. This document has got the inputs of the stakeholders from South Africa, and that is what is now being discussed as a draft national AI policy.
Well, I mean, I think that just means that we're all involved in, having this draft being put together. And I really liked what you said now, with this new technology in play, policymaking cannot be traditional anymore. You really do need this co-regulation, approach that you guys are taking. So I think that's a good sign to say, hey, listen, the final document might be something that we could all be proud of because we'll all be involved in. And I think with that even being said, I want to ask then, what exactly are you looking for during this consultation process? This comment period, what is success for you at the end of the day?
We're looking to develop something pretty unique for the country. So we have requested people to give their submissions to a policy process. We understand how these things work. We understand that some people are going to write us documents where they give us a lecture. And as policymakers, we're going to have to read each and every lecture. But, we would prefer if people would, while lecturing, also give us then the language that they want to see in the policy. It's wonderful. We will read the documents and get to understand what is the thinking. But if people can also just simplify what they write and say, all right, and what I would like to see in the policy are these words. That helps in a lot of ways, because then we're able to zoom in on what you want in the document. Then we say, is this going to be appropriate, considering the fact that the document already says this or that or that. So the definition of success for us is if the people of South Africa would write to us, and we also accept inputs from anywhere in the world, write to us, give us your idea of what you want to see in the policy, but also understand this. As policymakers, we do have some experience, and also we are able to see in your document where you kind of come from. We can see that this is what you are pressing for because possibly this is the sector that you have the most experience in. And so we will be able to then look at the document, look at the inputs, and first we will put your document or your inputs into a document which has to do with one or two other sectors, because we want to develop base documents for various sectors. And from there, we will be able to take the principles which belong in a national policy and bring them into the national policy. But by the end of this process, we will have killed two birds. We'll have hit two birds with one stone. I hope the SPCA doesn't get this message. But we want to be able to develop a base document for one sector and another sector and another sector. It could end up being 12 documents. But at the end, we will then be able to take the key principles that we need to agree on a national policy for the country, something which has very little to do with the sector interests, but truly the interests of the country and the key principles that we agree on, where we say, if an AI has been developed in South Africa, if an AI is to be used in South Africa, these are the outcomes that we want to judge it by. And as a result, we are not regulating AI. What we are looking for is to have little tests by which the outcomes of the AI would be tested through. So we have no need to regulate the technologies. We are about looking at the outcomes, and we want to put that in your hands so that you can then, see if you are comfortable with what the AI that you are using is producing. What are the values that we hold dear in South Africa? Is your policy truly living up to those values? And that's something that you will judge yourself. And we don't want a government which would be snooping into everything that you are doing on AI, but we would rather that you look at the AI that you are using and say, all right, does it live up to this? But of course, we will also, as a result of the policy, be able to understand what are the high risk applications, and what are the things that perhaps the AI would control, and what are the outcomes that that the AI would actually be dealing with. What is high risk among those? What doesn't live up to the values of South Africa? And from there, we would like you to judge that yourself, and not be waiting for the government to come and judge that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that's just so very important, understanding that actually at the end of the day, how this policy looks like will be up to all of us. And I think that is a responsibility. Yes, I think it's a great thing to stop right there. But members of our programs can actually have access to the full video under the recordings or toolkit bar. I think for brevity and time's sake, we can move on and try. And at least now we have a good understanding of the approach and what we're supposed to at least achieve with today's webinar.
Great. Yes, I agree. I think it was a very interesting video. Some things for me is that Dumisani is saying that South Africa should take a pro-innovation approach. It should be regulated at sector level. A few really important things. Also that they're really looking for for the wording for the policy, not comment on the wording, but actually suggested wording. But a couple of thoughts from me is the one is that we here are talking about a policy. It's not regulation. And the process is that you have white papers, green papers, you then get to a policy statement, then you get to legislation and things flow from it. So remember, this is government policy, it's not a bill. And then, government policy really is the strategic decisions that a government has taken. What are their plans? What are we going to do as South Africa to respond to the new AI era that we're in? That's what this document's all about. It's not just about regulation. It's very much about innovation and adoption as well. Karabo, maybe I know the explanatory note to it is quite interesting as well.
Yes, John. I think, once you've gone through the explanatory note, it really gives you a good idea of what they're trying to achieve with this policy document. It's very open-ended questions or language that is used. There are a lot of options that we're presented with, and it's almost like they say, hey, choose, which one do you think we should go with? And so my understanding of this explanatory note is that, hey, we are all involved in drafting this policy. Nothing in this policy here is definite, and they want stakeholder engagement. They really are encouraging the stakeholder engagement so that the final policy can be something that was a result of different people from different perspectives, from different sectors, have inputted their own contributions and created something that will actually work in practice. And so, it calls for something that I thought was very interesting, this working groups at sector level, and that means, as an organization, whatever sector you're in, you have the opportunity to be part of, the working groups in your sector to develop your standards and guidelines, so that you're not at the end of the day sitting back and saying, oh, why must I comply with this? It doesn't make sense in my context. You actually are able to sit at the table and say, hey, listen, this won't make sense in practice. Why don't we do this? And so I think it's very interesting, and it really gives us an opportunity, all of us, to really contribute to what the outcome will be.
And speaking of outcomes, I wanted to show this to you. We're going to go back to the Menti shortly, but what we did here is this is the original outcomes that are in the policy document, and we've reworded those to break it down a bit and I think make it a bit clearer. So the policy at the moment has these 6 outcomes. And the outcomes are very important because, as Dumisani said, this is an outcomes-based policy. We want to achieve the outcome. So what are we trying to achieve? And that's really what the policy currently says. All right, let's go back to the Menti because we're keen to get more feedback from you. And so, this is the next slide. For those of you, I think some joined late. If you are, you can go to menti.com. And you can use that code to access the Menti and then be able to respond to the questions. Great. So if you wouldn't mind answering that. Yeah, I mean, this deserves a webinar all on itself, all by itself, because we have to be clear on what are we trying to achieve as a country with AI, because everything follows from that. So this is critically important, and it's interesting to see that many of you say you don't see how the policy will achieve the results, and I think that's absolutely critical. We have to connect the policy with the outcomes. Absolutely. All right, in the interest of time, let's keep going. I think we've got a good indication of where that one is headed. So let's move on to the next question. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see. I agree. For me, this feels like a white paper. It doesn't feel like it's the government policy or a policy statement. We've done a lot of work in helping organizations to clearly define policy statements, and I struggle to find really good, clear policy statements in this document. So it's interesting to see your feedback. I think I agree with you. All right, let's, Karabo, unless you wanted to add anything, shall we keep going?
I think we can keep going just for the interest of time, John.
All right, so this is a what we like to call is possibility thinking. So I want you to give you, I'm going to give you 1 or 2 minutes and just think to yourself and really whatever comes to mind, let's write it down and we'll put it on this board. So what should be one of South Africa's policy statements? So in other words, it could be that South Africa is going to take a pro-innovation approach, or South Africa needs to prioritize electricity for AI. Yeah, whatever it is that comes to mind, what do you think South Africa's policy should be? And I think you can also add multiple ones as well.
Yeah. And I think this would be very important. I mean, because, this policy does set out kind of like the environment within which we'll be doing everything else. So a clear policy statement, John, is so important so that we can work towards it and achieving it. And let's see, we have some interesting ones here. AI training in all sectors. Education will be very important, I think. AI education, AI literacy, if we do want to take advantage of any kind of benefits that come with having AI in our society. Let's see. Innovation. I see here there's prioritizing embedding it in existing legislation, which is actually also one of the approaches in the draft policy, is that they want to at least be able to strengthen existing legislation so that it covers AI, but not specifically make it about AI, just strengthen the provision itself so that it's technology neutral. And I think that is a great approach because you don't want to have 5 new laws or 10 new laws just specifically for AI, because in 5, 10 years, it could be a different technology. So really, it's about strengthening laws. I can agree with that there. Responsible use. Fair and balanced.
So there's some themes coming through quite clearly, which is interesting. And if we had more time, we could group them. But yeah, there's some really interesting ones coming through.
Yeah. Let's see. Think to give people a little bit more time. But I see also, I see a lot of innovation popping up, but also a lot of words about, bias mitigation and responsible AI. And those are very important themes also in the draft policy that I did notice. And, like Dumisani did say, this policy should be about driving innovation, but in a responsible way. And how do we do that? And I think that's one of the questions that we'll have to be answering as, South Africa. Mm.
All right, well done. That was fantastic. I think there's lots there to unpack, and we'll certainly have a look at it and group it and look through that. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, one other thought is that there are many there that do coincide with the outcomes that are currently in that document. So that's interesting for me. All right, let's go on to the next slide. So do you think the policy, as it currently stands, balances innovation and regulation?
At least I can make a comment on that is, there's always these conversations that anytime you have any kind of regulation, you automatically stifle innovation. But I am a lawful enabler, and I believe there's this guy named Porter, and he says a good regulation actually stimulates innovation because it allows businesses to operate with clarity, and it also gives them an insight into more profitable avenues, other ways of innovating that maybe they didn't think about. So I think a well-structured regulation or well-structured policy can actually, promote innovation. And that's what we're trying to achieve here at the end of this policy, with the finalized version, a policy that actually stimulates innovation here in South Africa. So let's see.
I must say, my feeling when reading it was that it was heavy on regulation and didn't have enough on innovation. Questions like where are we going to get the electricity from? Where we need more compute power, we need more data centers. How are we going to achieve that as a country? What policy is the government going to set to incentivize AI in South Africa? Because we obviously, all countries are running a race at the moment, and we need to be picking which race we're trying to run in and what we wanting to achieve. We're not going to beat America or China as an example in the AI race. We're going to have to pick what is our niche as a country in a global context, and what are our policies that we're trying to embed to achieve those aims. All right, let's go on to the next one. So what approach should South Africa take to implement its AI policy?
These are options that we were presented with in the draft policy. And it essentially says, hey, these are the four approaches that we have researched and looked into. And what do you think we should follow? You also are encouraged to have a combination of these approaches, because I also am a firm believer that, you are going to have to definitely think a lot outside the box, be creative in order to really have a system and an environment in place where we are promoting innovation, but also managing the risks, because the AI risks are known and they are real and they do materialize. We've seen it, so it's really about that, like getting that really good balance there. Mm.
So we're getting really grouping in all of them, except there are two that are dominating. Definitely aligning global standards.
Yeah.
All right, great. I think we should move on to the next one. Robert, do you want to talk us through this one?
Yes. So the policy just has laid out some key role players. Now, of course, it names other people who will be part of the AI ecosystem, but these are the key role players that the policy just kind of like lays out will be involved in driving AI adoption, innovation, development in South Africa. And so, the question here is, are these the people to do the job? And are they the most appropriate? And so we'll just have a look here what you guys have to think. Okay.
Yeah, I think the DCDT it should really top the list. They're the ones who are driving this policy development, and so I'd be surprised if they're not. I'm glad to see that the regulator's quite high up, because we certainly think that the information regulator's got an important role to play.
Yeah, that looks about good. Yeah. Oh, the information regulators competing with
Yes, climbing up the ranking.
Yeah, right. And I mean, they are already an established regulator that is kind of like, already acting while in the South African regulatory environment. And so that they would be a great candidate to kind of just, carry on the good work that they're doing and just expand it a little bit, especially when AI and personal data specifically are just so much intertwined.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I think we're settling there. Let's move on to, so are there any role players which are missing from this policy? And this, again, it's possibility thinking, and yeah, really interested to get some views from a diverse group. We've got about 150 people on the webinar at the moment, so it'll be good to see. Oh, good point. Small business. Yes, we definitely need to be thinking of SMEs.
Mm. Oh, I did think that the education department is, I didn't see that then. I think that's also a good point. You know, if you are looking at equipping people with the necessary knowledge or AI training that you want. You really do want to start at a very young age. I mean, I think in China, they have children as young as 4 already, going through AI literacy courses. And so I think that is a very important part of it, especially when we think about AI for the future. Yes, we want to deal with it now, but also we want to create an environment where like the future South Africans are in a great position to really take advantage of the benefits and also be able to mitigate the risks. Mm.
Yeah, education's coming through very strongly. And business chambers, the chambers of commerce is also interesting. That's a good point.
Mm.
Right, I think I'll give you 5 more seconds and then we can move on from there. Okay, great. Let's go on to the next question.
Yes, so the policy sets out a couple of new institutions that should be established, and they'd all have specific roles that they would have to play, and this would be specifically relating to AI, and the question is, and at least some of the comments that I've been reading, at least in the newspaper and by others, is do we actually need all of these institutions? And I think that's what we're trying to gather here. If you could just maybe tell us what you think. You can select more than one if you think, oh, you know these are the three that we definitely need, but otherwise we actually don't need the rest.
Yeah, I think we've got to be very careful not to create a whole lot of new public bodies that need to be staffed and skilled and funded. And so we've got to be cautious. The
Mm,
National AI Commission, for me, makes sense. That would be one body. Whether we need the others really is for me up for debate. I think yeah, we've got to be very cautious. Otherwise, we're going to have the similar scenario to the information regulator where it's created by a law, but it takes 10 or longer years for it to become effective and actually be functioning. And
mm.
obviously in an AI context, we definitely do not have 10 years. But thanks. That's really interesting, your feedback there. It's interesting that the ethics board is actually winning, um, which
Mm.
uh, which is interesting.
Yes, that is very interesting. Okay.
All right, let's move on from there. I think we've got some good input there. So in the policy, there are 6 pillars, and each pillar has an aim, and each pillar has building blocks, which is it's quite cumbersome. But these are the 6 pillars, which the idea is that the pillars will support the policy and the action that's taken to get us to the outcomes. As we saw at the beginning, I don't think there's enough of a connection between the pillars and how they will relate to the outcomes. But it's interesting to see how you rate these.
Mm. I do. I mean, it looks like responsible governance is winning a little bit, yeah, at the forefront now. I mean, for us as lawful enablers, we definitely do think responsible governance is a very important part of it and a very strategic pillar because, it really allows you to have the necessary guardrails in place where the benefits that you are getting from AI or using AI don't kind of like turn around and flip on you. I like to say, using AI without governance is like flipping a coin. Like on the one side, you either harm individuals, or on the other side, you either harm your own business. So you really don't have like there's no winning there if you don't have responsible governance in place. Um Yeah, and I would think that capacity and talent development would have been, I think further or like higher up, because I think that is very strategic when you have, a workforce or a society that knows about AI that can start to innovate towards AI, and if we have the capacity such as the digital infrastructure, that is very important. We can have all the policies that we want, but without the digital infrastructure to kind of like, start to innovate in that space, then we really can't get very far. We just become consumers of technology that was created somewhere else. And then that also makes it very difficult to govern because they're not developed with our principles in mind.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, for me, the two winners are the right winners. I would also pick those. So that's interesting. Interesting observation. Great. So let's go on to some more possibility thinking. So what strategic priority does this policy leave out? I mean, if you haven't read it, that's quite difficult to answer. But so maybe it's what is the strategic priority that no one's talking about that you think is really important?
Mm.
For me, one of the key ones is electricity. I don't think the policy nearly or doesn't talk enough about electricity nearly enough. AI needs a lot of power, and obviously South Africa, we have our challenges with power, and we need to figure out a way of getting power for AI.
And I do want to say I'm really enjoying also the comments in the comment sections and the Q&A box. Please do continue to like put some comments there and, carry on the conversation because that's what the session is about. It's about brainstorming with others so we can have a better idea of how to move forward. Okay.
Great. So let's keep going in the interest of time. So if you could, rank these innovation supporting measures by importance to your organization.
And I think, just thinking about what Dumisani said, and he said, this policy is to support innovation. And so in order to do that, I think it's important to have certain mechanisms in place, that will be able to support, that innovation, especially, for our developing AI ecosystem. So we really do need very strategic things that will actually help people on the ground. It's one thing to say, oh, like this is the measure that we should use, while the people on the ground think, oh, that's actually not something that would help me innovate. And so I think this is a very important thing to look at is what structures can we invest in, because these things also would require investment, and so what can we invest in to make sure that, our startups, our small and medium-sized enterprises, and even our large enterprises are able to, innovate in the space of South Africa. And I see digital infrastructures at number one. And like I said, I also agree with that. People can't even start to think about innovating when there isn't the infrastructure to do that. And so that's important.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, something I'm passionately believe about is that unless you really get AI cracking in South Africa and we're all using it and really going for it, there's nothing ready to govern. There's nothing to regulate. We have to first be using AI, and to do that, you need the infrastructure.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So again, some possibility thinking. Whatever comes to mind. Don't think too hard about it. If anything comes, it's all good answers. Yeah, how else can innovation be supported?
Mm. Regulation free. I think that's very interesting.
I mean, it's interesting, Dumasani talking about freedom. I think he's raising that because generally speaking, the approach that government wants to take is low touch regulation and
Mm,
very much more innovation rather than regulation. I think that's what the message he's sending there.
mm. And I see here open data, and that is actually something that is touched upon in the policy, creating like open data for public and private sectors because, AI does run on data and, you do have very big tech or big enterprises that have a lot of data in their hands. And, also government has a lot of data on their hands. And so how do you share that data in a way that is safe and secure and allows for innovation? And those are the types of things that we have to think about and that we can come together and kind of strategize on. So that's really cool. Mm. And the LLMs in multiple South African languages, I do think that is such a key point because what that does, it automatically takes our ability to innovate from a small section, that is educated in English and can, use that language freely to everyone in South Africa, because I do think everyone in South Africa does have something to offer and sometimes access is difficult. So if we have these LLMs in different South African languages, we all of a sudden have a population of 50 million people who can contribute something. So I think that would be really cool too, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think I'm just conscious of time. Let's
Yes.
sorry, we're gonna finish voting there. Um so name one of the risks you are concerned about.
Mm. And AI risks materialize so differently everywhere. And they do exist. I think that there is no AI use with no risk at the moment. And so I it it's so important that everyone is aware that risks do, materialize, that they are there, because some people I think aren't aware that the risks are there. And so that also puts people in a very compromising position. And not just people, organizations as well. If your employees are not aware of the AI risks that can present by virtue of using AI tools, you really put yourself in a very compromising position, either legally, whether it's reputational, whether it's also operational, because an AI tool can really just stop all your systems in the tracks. It can wipe out your code base. An AI agent can wipe out your code base if you're not too careful. So there's so many risks that do present there, and I think it's important to be aware of them.
Yeah, that's great. Let's keep going. So I think that we've got one or two questions left, and then we're on to talking about submitting comments. Yeah, so maybe it would be interesting to get your feel on this. Okay,
Mm.
great. So I think we're seeing the trend there. It's positively or people don't know. And yeah, that's the end of our questions. So I think let's leave that there. And let's move on to the next section. Sorry, just give me a sec here.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think the next point to discuss really is about how do we submit comments. And I think what's interesting here is that we put together this document, which I quickly wanted to share with you. Really, this is about how to comment on government policy. And as Dumasani said, they don't really want lectures. If you want your comment to be successful, you need to state who you are, how it affects you, then be specific and refer to the policy, the current document. And then I think the most important thing is be very practical and don't just criticize, also give solutions. So if you're going to criticize, you have to give an alternative. And Dumasani was talking about providing them with wording. And you'll see there also there's a mention to using plain language in your arguments. The documents must be actionable, I think, is key and must be able to, you obviously must submit it on time on important things to do. So I think the question for all of us is, how are you planning to submit comments? Are you planning to submit comments? And yeah, I mean, it's pretty tricky. There are different options that are available to you. But I think let's run this poll to get an idea of what your plan is. Let's just see. Robert, do you know what the poll's called?
No.
Okay, I can't find it. So let's leave that. I think it would be great if you could give us an indication in the chat. Are you planning to submit comments yourself? Are you going to do it through an industry association? Are you needing guidance with it? We are planning to submit generic comments on behalf of the members of our programs. And so if you want to participate in that, you could join our AI governance program, and we're going to be doing a lot more work in brainstorming and thinking of how to comment on their behalf. But that will be quite generic comment. It'll be a broader commentary. If you want more specific, you're welcome to engage with us as well. I'd also be interested if you're just not planning to comment at all, or what the barriers are that are stopping you from commenting, because this is a really important moment. This is South Africa's time to develop good policy. It's going to impact the country for years to come if we get this wrong or if we get it right. So it really is important, and I think I'd really encourage you to read the policy and to consider it in a lot of detail. So maybe if we move then on to some take-home points, we've only got 4 minutes left. Sure, it really has gone fast. I think quickly for me, I think that South Africa needs an AI policy that's understandable, actionable, and measurable. And the current draft document is not that. And we need to work towards getting that for South Africa. It's absolutely critical. And it must be in plain language. Everyone has a voice now in formulating this. This is now the time to act. And if you are going to comment, be proactive about it and focus on the solution. Focus on what the wording should be, I think, are some of my key take-home points. But Karabo, anything from you?
Yes, John, I do think that it's important to comment. And, whatever perspective that you're coming from, this policy will affect all of us at the end. So I do encourage everyone to create a comment, even if it's just something very simple and plain, and be able to give more insight into how we can move forward. I am very optimistic. I'm an eternal optimist. So I do think that we are able to create something really great here at the end. So yeah, that's my closing comment there. Please do comment on this policy.
Great, thanks very much. And then, Karabo, are there any sorry, I see there was an echo on the sound. Sorry, I'm only seeing that now. Are there any particular questions that you think we should deal with?
I think, John, we've actually covered most of the questions here during the Menti or in the chat. So there aren't any specific ones that I think that maybe we can go through. But yeah.
I did see one that people asking about the comments, and comments are currently open. It was 60 days from when it was published. So we've got about 50 days left, or 45 days to comment. And yeah, there's information on our website about how you can comment. Yeah, so I think maybe some calls to action is go and read the policy. Absolutely go and read the document. Don't just rely on reading what other people have said about it. Go and read the actual document itself. It is pretty heavy going. I must say I'm pretty critical of the documents. I think there's good content, but it's not a great document. And then other thoughts is you could join our AI governance program. The videos that we showed today and other videos are in there, and there's more content like this. And we're going to be doing more exercises with members to submit comment. And then you can also instruct us to help you to formulate your comments and submit that comment. Yeah. So Catherine, yes, our AI governance program, I think Karabo's, put a link there that you can have a look at. And while we're just thinking of that, we always like to end our webinars asking for some feedback. And so if you wouldn't mind answering that quick poll, it'll be interesting to see how you found today's session. It was fast, cheapest at that hour went by really quickly. We had planned
Yeah.
to show you some more videos, especially Mark Hanks got some really interesting views on the policy, but we didn't get a chance to show you that. And yeah, there are lots of questions and issues that are worthy of further discussion. Today was an opportunity for us to start getting some of the issues in the air, and we'll look through it and decide what else we can talk about in different settings. Karabo, anything final from you?
Yes, the policy, is not in play at the moment, but if your organization doesn't have an AI governance program in place or trying to regulate AI use or AI use in the organization, you are actually at the back of your competition. So it's very important to start governing AI now, even though there aren't any specific laws that require you to. This really does puts you in a position to, protect your business assets and also give you a competitive advantage for when, there are laws and sector specific guidelines that are coming.
Great. So Karabo, thanks very much for your work for today's session. I know you did a lot of the preparatory work, so well done. And thank you to all of you for joining. It was very nice to have this session, and I think we gathered a lot of useful information, and hopefully we've helped you to get some further insights and decide on some next steps.
Yes.
Great. I think we'll leave it there. We're at the top of the hour. Thanks very much for joining, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye.